You hear it all the time, right? That improving the world is just incredibly complex. But what if it isn't? What if the engine behind all human progress could be boiled down to just 6 fundamental ideas? Well, today, we're exploring a simple yet really powerful framework that does exactly that. So let's get into it. I mean, it's a huge question, isn't it? One that can feel completely and totally overwhelming. You want to make things better, of course you do. But honestly, where do you even start? Okay, let's be real for a second. We've made incredible strides. We've cured diseases and figured out how to order a pizza with a few taps on a phone. That's definitely progress. But it's also pretty clear we're facing some big bumps in the road, from all the polarization out there to just plain old misinformation. The goal here isn't to fix everything all at once, but to find a framework, a kind of compass, for just nudging things in a better direction. So, the source material we're looking at today began with this gigantic, sprawling list of ideas for improvement. Things like education reform, science, media, the whole shebang. But hidden within all that complexity, they started to see a simpler, more fundamental pattern. Instead of getting tangled up in dozens and dozens of different issues, the thinking shifted. They asked a really powerful question. What if all positive change throughout all of human history is powered by the same core forces? And here they are. These are the 6 core elements. Now, these aren't just some corporate buzzwords, okay? Think of them as the fundamental ingredients for any kind of meaningful progress, whether it's in our own personal lives or right across all of society. The big idea here is that these elements are not new. Not at all. They are the timeless engine of civilization, humming along in the background. So the real work for us isn't inventing something revolutionary. It's about consciously strengthening and rebalancing these forces in our world today. All right, let's break them down. The first pair forms the absolute bedrock of progress: reason and valuable knowledge. This is all about how we see the world clearly and build everything else on a solid foundation of truth. And the distinction here is so important. Reason isn't just about being smart. It's having the courage to ask why, instead of just going along with the crowd. And valuable knowledge? That's not about cramming for a test. It's about genuinely understanding how things actually work. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? The whole goal is to build our mental toolkits. When you foster independent, critical thought, you empower people to navigate this incredibly complex world on their own terms, for their entire lives. Okay, here's a perfect and, slightly embarrassing story from the source material that shows this in action. It's a funny, low-stakes example of just how easily our brains can get tricked if we're not paying close attention. You see, that moment of hesitation, that little internal question of, wait a minute, is this for real? That is the muscle of reason at work. It's a muscle we all have, and we all need to be exercising it a lot more often. This is such a great practical takeaway. Framing fact-checking as basic mental hygiene is a powerful way to turn what feels like a chore into just a healthy habit. It's not about being cynical, it's about being diligent. Okay, so the next pair builds directly on top of that foundation. We're talking about communication and creativity. Because once we have clear thoughts, we need ways to share them, combine them, and imagine totally new possibilities. The contrast here is key. Communication at its best is about genuine connection, not just trying to persuade or control someone. And boy, you can see that tension everywhere today. At the same time, creativity is the vital antidote to getting stuck, to stagnation. It's what pushes us to ask what if, instead of just accepting what is. We often stick creativity in this little box labeled art, but it's the engine of science and business and social change too. Every single major scientific theory, from relativity to evolution, began not just with data, but with a profound act of imagination. Fostering this kind of culture isn't just a nice to have. It's about building a resilient cultural infrastructure. A society that gives space for oddball ideas and values different ways of thinking is a society that can adapt and innovate when it faces new challenges. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most critical pair of elements. These are what give all the others their meaning: love, framed here as compassion, and purposeful action. I mean, think about it. Without compassion, reason and creativity can lead to some really cold, even destructive outcomes. Progress has to serve people. And without action, all the brilliant, compassionate ideas in the world just stay as ideas. This is where it all comes together. It's like this: Reason, knowledge, communication, and creativity are the vehicle, but compassion is the steering wheel, and purposeful action is the fuel. You need all of them to actually get somewhere worthwhile. And this is where it becomes really personal. It's so easy to think that progress is someone else's job, the scientists, the leaders, the big thinkers. But the source material is really clear that every single one of us has influence, no matter how small our world might seem. So let's bring this whole framework right down to earth. How do we actually use this stuff? Well, the key is to see it not as some grand plan for saving the world, but as a simple guide for our daily lives. And this is the most empowering part of the whole idea. You can practice reason by just questioning a headline. You can practice communication by just listening a little bit better. You can practice compassion in a small interaction. It's all accessible to all of us right now. Ultimately, these simple actions are the 6 elements in practice. Every small choice to be a little more curious, a little kinder, a little more courageous, it all adds up. It creates a current that moves all of us forward. And this is the perfect way to wrap up. This isn't about achieving a perfect utopia tomorrow. It's about choosing a better direction today, knowing that both we and the world are constantly evolving. It's a journey, not a destination.